Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Adobe Fonts Show, episode 43.
Nice, 43.
43.
Hi, everyone. I see we have a few people that have joined us already. We have Wade as our moderator. Thanks, Wade.
Yes, thank you, Wade.
Zameli, Garrett, Paul, Camille, welcome. Let us know where you're from, and we will let you know where we're from, too. We'll return the favor.
Yes, if you tell us where you're from, we'll tell you.
Only then.
Only then.
Fabio, Oliver, Kerwin, great to see you all.
Yes, welcome, everybody.
And I'll introduce myself. I'm Ari, the library manager for Adobe Fonts. My team works with all the Foundry partners that design the fonts that are included in your Creative Cloud subscription. We currently have over 150 partners, and we continually add fonts to expand our library.
And I'll introduce myself. I'm Ben. I'm a content producer here at Adobe Fonts. I started out in support many years ago answering all manner of font-related questions, and now I do things like the Adobe Fonts Show and make videos so that you can get the most out of type and fonts when you're using Creative Cloud. And for those of you that are new to Adobe Fonts is a library of 20,000 fonts that you can use for personal and commercial use. So if you've not checked out Adobe Fonts yet, I think this stream is the best time to check out Adobe Fonts. And if you go to fonts.adobe.com, check out the recommendations page as a great place to start to just see really cool fonts, and you can activate them right away and get started.
Yeah, and if this is the first time for you on the Adobe Fonts Show, welcome. We talk about all things fonts. We invite professionals from the type world. Sometimes we give you tutorials. If you like the show, you can subscribe to Adobe Live on YouTube and follow Adobe Fonts on Behance. And then you'll be updated on all future episodes, and you can watch all past episodes. We now have over 1,000 subscribers to our Behance page, which is great. And speaking of YouTube, if you're on YouTube right now, move over to behance.net/live if you want us to see your chat questions.
Yeah, we'll be watching the chat. So
yeah, that's where we're watching the chat.
Yep.
And people are telling us where they're from. Zameli is from Tunisia. That's awesome. Welcome. Oliver from the UK. Camille is in San Francisco. I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area as well. We've had some rains and storms.
Yes.
So
there have been some internet outages.
Our power on.
Yeah, keep the power going. Let the streaming gods help us with that.
Yeah.
I'm in Brooklyn, New York. We had a little bit of snow yesterday and the day before, but today is very clear and sunny. So hopefully power and internet all good over here.
Sounds good. So what are we doing today?
Well, I just have a quick poll for everyone related to today's topic. But are you familiar with typographic hierarchy? I feel like this subject, I found it to be I just find the phrase typographic hierarchy to be a little bit intimidating, or like a thing that's like over there that I don't necessarily want to deal with right now. But I've certainly dived in a little bit in the past, and it is very helpful once I wrapped my head around it a little bit. But I just wanted to get a sense of where everyone's at. So if you let us know, A, B, or C, or write whatever your answer is, let us know if that's something you've delved into, messed around with, learned about, or are new to. And we'll at least have an idea of where everyone's kind of starting out. But it's an important topic that, that I think feels drier on the surface, but is very helpful and useful.
Yeah. So basically, when you're presenting information, how it's presented
Yeah.
relies on typographic hierarchy.
Yeah.
And I think everyone starts out with, when they're in school, they're working in a Word document and they might make something like red, they might underline it in red, they might make it bigger, those kinds of ways of emphasizing text. Or if you follow, there's a few accounts that I follow on social media that are kind of funny about office notes, like notes that people leave in office break rooms to say, clean out the fridge if you left items in the fridge, or don't eat my lunch.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's always like bright red, underlined on a huge piece of paper.
Yeah.
And it's just funny, like when people are desperate to get their message across, how they convey it.
Yeah.
And they're using typographic hierarchy. It's just not a term that they know how to use.
Yeah. And I feel like it's something we naturally do. Anytime you make something bold or italic, you're using a kind of hierarchy. Even in body text, you're highlighting, you're giving certain information a little bit more emphasis, or a little bit more, you're trying to grab a little bit more attention to that. And so we do it all naturally to try to add emphasis whenever we're doing an email or anything like that. So it's a very common thing that we're doing all the time. And then, yeah, when you dive in a little bit more, it's definitely helpful to see something. Yeah, we'll get into it.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
So it looks like there's mixed responses.
Some C's, some B's, some A. Yeah, we've got a good mix of all of them. This is definitely going to be good for C's because this is very introductory, but it's good practice for anyone who's dealing with type at all. I think this is good practice. So that brings us to our topic for today. We're going through the Practicing Typography Basics course. This course is free from Adobe, and you can go through all the lessons. We should have a link in the description of the video. And also, I think Wade has the link for this as well. We're going through part 3 today. And so you can actually download this exercise file, open it up in Illustrator, and kind of work alongside us if you want to do that. Or you can just watch us do it and try that later. But I would definitely recommend checking out all of the lessons. And Wade just posted the link in the chat. And yeah, it's very, very helpful, and it's great. So we're going to dive in. First, we're going to watch the short video that explains basically what we're going to be doing and talks a little bit about hierarchy, and then we'll dive in. So here's the video.
In this lesson, I'll show you how and why to arrange text carefully in a layout. Okay, so now we know how to help people read body text, and we know how to use display text to get their attention. Now we'll practice guiding a reader through information. A single project often has lots of different text elements doing different jobs. So we need to think about how these chunks of text work together and how they feel together. When we experience a social graphic, for example, as we scroll through our feeds, some specific things happen. A key element will catch our attention. Then our eyes will move to a secondary spot and we'll continue scanning. And as we do this, we're getting a gut feeling about this graphic emotionally. Typographic layout guides our eyes and influences these emotions. Having a clear hierarchy is super important here, but I want to focus on 2 other aspects that are also really important: alignment and proximity. Alignment, lining elements up in consistent ways, makes things feel more organized and calm. And proximity is how near or far elements are from one another. Things that are closer to each other will seem related, and that really helps us process what we see. So our next exercise is about arranging text in a layout. The only thing we'll be doing here is moving text around freely. And as we do it, we'll focus on alignment and proximity. The purpose here is to develop a sense for how small tweaks add up to an overall feeling. So here we have our body text, our display text, and some other elements. Let's move them around on the design surface and look at their relationship to each other. So we're not changing font sizes or anything, not adjusting properties, just deciding for ourselves how close are headings to the body text, and how close is the display text to the rest of it. How close are the text blurbs to each other? You may come up with something different here, and that's okay. Just like with the previous exercise, we're adjusting one thing, which is where elements are positioned. But we're thinking about something else. We're thinking about alignment and proximity. So alignment. This whole group of elements can feel misaligned. You can think of the whole layout as having an overall alignment. It's not always as simple, but there's usually one strong axis of alignment in a design. Pairs of elements can be misaligned, so pay attention at this lower level too to make sure that things feel right. And there are details to consider as well. Different design tools will snap elements to one another to try to help with alignment consistency, but you can't always trust that. You need to make sure that things feel visually aligned to you. Now, proximity. We can see when these heading and body text sections are too close to each other, things get murky. The proximity of these headings to one another starts to associate them together rather than with their respective body text elements. If our layout is too spacious, it starts to feel disconnected and messy. And this gets even more interesting when you think about boundaries. If you're designing for specific page or screen dimensions, the presence of those boundaries can influence everything. Now that these elements are closer to the edges than to each other, we have a problem. We need to tighten that all up. Do this exercise several times using the example project. It's very important to compare the solutions you come up with and judge how alignment and proximity are working, whether they're working well or not. The more times you do this, the more exercise you have in making those judgments.
Nice. So yeah,
I'm very calm now.
I'm very calm too. Thank you, Tim Brown's voice, for that. Yeah, so that's the basic exercise we're going to go through today. I think one thing I just wanted to point out here is that this stuff seems very finessey, you know? It's very much about finessing. I made up that word, by the way, finessey. So right here. But you know what I mean? It's like a thing of, they're very small adjustments, and then you kind of have to step back for a second and see how things look, and then tweak details, and then step back and see how they look. So good stuff. Yeah, let's dive in.
Okay, so this is the page that the tutorial came from, and then you just click on Open in Illustrator. So I clicked on that earlier, and then I get this document, and I get this panel, and I'm able to start the tutorial here. So I'm saying start, and then it takes me through, which is really cool. It doesn't require much prior experience or preparation. So it says our project has some fonts applied, which may not be installed on your computer. And if they are not, then we'll get the missing fonts dialog. I think that I have the fonts from the previous exercise that we did.
Yeah, I think so.
So
Looks like everything is showing up correctly.
yeah, so it says our ad includes multiple chunks of text that perform different jobs. Let's start getting it into position. With the selection tool selected, try moving the elements around in the working design artboard. So this is the working design artboard. And just like Tim was doing, just moving things around and seeing what relationship they should have to each other. It's clear that these are titles, so they should be above the text. And then he mentions, or this tutorial mentions, that the magenta guides pop up as the objects snap to other things in the layout. So you see these guides popping up and you're able to see like, oh, at this point, it's snapping to the bottom of the text box on the right versus here, it's like snapping to the edge of this. So there's a lot of guides that pop up and kind of put you in the
In
right
the general
direction.
right direction. And then, but like Tim was saying, sometimes a layout will look not aligned visually to you, even though it's aligned according to the guides here. And if that's the case, go with your own gut on that. Make sure it looks right. Make sure it looks right to you and to your eyes. And you get better at this as you do it. But yeah.
Yeah, so if I'm going to align these two together, it shows also, it's interesting that this description of the green line, if I move it here, it says baseline. I know that it's really small, but it says baseline. And then if I kind of adjust it, it says glyph bound. So it's very specific that at some points it's aligning to right below the letters. So the baseline of each letter that's within the box, that's the glyph box. So you can get really detailed with how you align things.
And in this case, baseline is probably what we want to go for, because the bottom of the G is, that's the glyph.
That's not what we want.
That's the bottom of the glyph.
Yeah. So I'm kind of putting these into this formation. Maybe I'll center these. So we're just playing around. We're not changing anything. Obviously, the sizes are off, right? This is all very off. So when we're putting things in order, it says like drag the content in the order you think it should appear. And then you can start to get a visual hierarchy. So after this, we're going to change the sizes as well.
And we kind of got an idea of the order from the video, since this is the same kind of layout. But you could also do this exercise with any text that you're working on, and it doesn't have to look like this at all. And you could even use the same text and do a different, maybe you want to do a mobile layout instead of a widescreen layout, or, something like that. So feel free to experiment.
So I'm increasing the size up, let's say to 72. There's also theories about the relative size of text. For example, a heading to a subheading. This is kind of it's quite a big title in relation to this heading, but it depends on the application of where it's going to go. I'm probably going to decrease it to 60. So then I'm putting this in the middle.
And then I feel like those headings, feel a little small compared to the body text. But
that's true.
Yeah.
The body text, let me see. Well, maybe I should just increase these to a little bit more. What do you think?
Just what?
No, this has to get bigger.
I was thinking 61 for sure. 61.5, I think.
61.5 is the perfect size. Then everyone can read it perfectly.
I've been doing this so long, I just know down to the 0.00, font size of anything. I just know it. I know the math in my head, so.
That I'm making smaller. Now everything seems to be too close to the title.
And yeah, I noticed too, when you zoom out, you get a different a different feel for how everything kind of goes together. than
Yeah,
when you
and let's
zoomed
say
in.
this looks like it's supposed to be UI, but like for a mobile app, like Tim showed in his video, but let's say this is your space that you're working with. He was also talking about how the text is aligned according to the full space. So having too many gaps between your text versus the rest of the borders makes it disjointed. So that's important to think about as well.
Right, like if you just moved range up a little, a little bit by itself, it just looks disconnected. It looks like
Yeah.
it's floating in space by itself. It looks lonely.
This is really hard because I'm focusing so much. It's so simple, but now I'm focusing on exactly where everything is, and it makes it more complicated. So then you could decide, oh, I want these to be center aligned headings. So they don't start from the left, they're centrally aligned. I think that might look better with the headings. But then with body text, it's usually harder to read when it's center, if there's so much text. So I'm leaving it as
Left
it
aligned,
is. Okay. It looks okay for now. Is this even in the center? How do I know? Why doesn't it tell me?
I think it will try to tell you. Also, you can use the align function
Whoops.
to center
Sometimes
it.
I scroll and then it changes
I know.
this side.
To for
So
sure
here, if I go here to the center align, yeah, it will take it to the center, which is great.
Also,
and then the whole
real quick,
thing, I think.
Yeah, if you grouped everything, you have to group everything first. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
I'm just going to move it so that visually it looks
pretty good.
Okay, so that looks pretty centered. Let's see what the tutorial says next. It says resize the boxes, select the subhead, change the font size. Basically what we've been doing. As you scale each element, try to maintain a balance between the parts to lead the user's eye in order from most to least important. So I think we have achieved that here. It's obvious that their eye is going to go straight to the title, and then next
they can
further on down.
Yeah, they can scan to see what either of these sections talks about and then read further if they want to.
So then balanced layouts usually feature a strong axis of alignment. In other words, an imaginary line that aligns a group of elements. Notice the aqua colored lines on the example artboards to the right. Ooh. Now you'll add guides to help you align your content. Show the rulers by choosing View, Rulers, Show Rulers. From the vertical ruler on the left, drag into the document to create a vertical guide. All right, so I'm going to do it on here. I'm going to go View, Rulers, Show Rulers, and then you can drag them in. So we can drag a guide to the middle by using that align tool. So I have it selected, and then I did horizontal align center. And then I can add as many guides as I want, just to, depending on what elements I have on my page. So that's cool. What else is it wanting me to do? Draw a new guide, align that guide by clicking the vertical. Yeah, so we can keep aligning these Um, horizontal line left, horizontal line center. There's so many types of aligning. But this helps you like fit things into a box. So then what else? And then drag the range heading into the horizontal center of the design. Visually align the center of the heading to the center guide. Okay, we have to do this one as well. Let me align that. Perfect.
There we go. We had a question from YouTube. Tommy asks, any tips on how to create balanced asymmetrical layouts compositions with type? That isn't probably something we're going to get into today, but that's actually a really good idea for a future stream. But do we have any quick tips or ideas about how to do that?
Balanced asymmetrical.
Yeah, so when things aren't as balanced as this, when maybe you have a large element on the right that's a different font and you have, body text on the left or something like that. I think the stuff we're doing here actually would help with that, which is basically that's even more finesse is involved in that than is in something like this. Because in that case, you kind of have to jump between the overall look and the details and, strike a balance between those two things. I think experimenting, playing around until something feels right. I think the point of what we're doing today is actually having you get comfortable with what feels right to you as you move things around, very small details, tweak things. It'll give you a sense of what just kind of feels right. And then once you have that and you start to do things that are maybe a little more asymmetrical, that kind of sense of what feels balanced to you will kind of shine through, and those decisions will be easier to make because you've kind of practiced doing it a few times. So that's kind of what this is about.
I think, for example, the lines that we've created here, even if this is like what your artboard looks like, and you want something like this, you can still use, if you break up your artboard into these equal parts, it really helps you to visualize the relationship of everything and help you with the hierarchy. So even if it's not all symmetrical, it's like, okay, this, I'm seeing that maybe I need to put like one more increment. I have it kind of like by the markings on the top ruler. Maybe I need to have like an inch from the edge. So everything's about an inch from the edge. And maybe I need another one here. And just like keeping the composition, that will really help you to keep the composition looking balanced, even if you have crazy things going on.
Yeah.
What we're doing right now could help you with that. I'm just gonna go back. Just as a quick example, like this segmenting thing helps with any design. And it also helps you, like, even if the app is telling you, oh, you're in the middle of the page. Like when I moved this, like Tim said, and like Ben was reiterating, it might not look like the middle of the page to you. Your eye is the best judge of it. Maybe there's weird serifs on the letters, and the serif kind of balances it differently for your eye, so you need to optically adjust it. So the lines help a lot, and then once you do everything according to the lines, then you make like your little tweaks for your eye.
Another thing I would recommend is if you're doing something kind of tricky asymmetrically, I think this is a good tip. Make a couple versions that you think you like, and then step away for about an hour and come back and look at them all without any guides or anything else and just see what it looks like. Because when we're looking at something so detailed like this, our eyes can start to fool us because we're just focused so intensely on one element or two elements, and it's kind of hard to get a general sense of something. So that's what I would recommend. Do a couple versions of something kind of quirky or asymmetrical, and then step away and then come back and see which one is really resonating and then maybe work further on that one. But I know writers do this with writing. They'll write a draft of something, they'll put it away for a couple days, and then they'll come and read it. And it's the same with mixing music. If you're listening to music really in a lot of detail, your ears start to fool you, because if you're really focused on the bass, you start to hear the bass more, and you start to really notice that. And then you turn the bass down because it sounds so loud, but it's really just because you're kind of really hyper focused on it. So yeah, you step away, let your ears take a break, come back after 30 minutes, an hour, and then see what it feels like fresh. So that would be my tip for that.
Yeah. So in the tutorial, it says a lot of the things we've already done, changing sizing, changing alignment, center aligning the text like we did with these subheadings, and then really refining how far away things are from each other, and just using your arrow keys to nudge things, because when you're dragging, you don't have as much control.
Fine-tuned
so just
control.
Nudging things like closer to each other, seeing what happens. Does it need to be further away? What about this heading along with the body text? Also, if you press shift and up or down arrow, it'll move it by 10. So you don't have to go like 10 times. Just a quick tip to visualize things. I think this needs to go down a little bit. Maybe this needs nudge it a couple up. Of course, select them together so you're doing the same thing to each. I think this one needs to be aligned here with this. They're not exactly the same. Yeah, so just really being detailed about how far each element is from the other, making sure that this and this are cohesive, because if there's more space between, if there's equal space between the title and then these elements, it looks like that this heading that I'm selecting right now is its own thing and it's not related to that body text. So being really careful about how close things are to each other.
Yeah, that's where proximity comes in.
Yeah. Okay. So, and then, you can always go to hide these guides to view what you did without having this distraction afterwards. Okay.
What's next?
Let's see, what else? It's done.
Wow.
Okay, so now we did everything it said to do.
Well, there was some more stuff in
I'm
there.
not closing it. Don't make me close.
Click cancel. And then, yeah, there were a couple other examples in there, I think. We could certainly take a look at those.
Yes, for sure. So this is some examples of how you could lay it out. So we can do something more exciting with the one we have and take these as just ideas of what happens here. So the orange one, maybe the call to action of learn more should be at the top, because people might not read everything, but they might still be interested, and you just want them to get in and buy your product or whatever it is. And the title is so big that it's still going to catch your attention, even though it's at the bottom. So that maybe that could work. Maybe it's something that you test out and you see, like, how do people react to each of these? I think that this one works really well.
Not quite asymmetrical, but certainly more asymmetrical than the first example we did.
Yeah. You can still see, it's more fun. Like, you see the title, but it's not just on the top horizontally. And I think in this example, your eye goes more to these headings: personal coaching, flexible workouts. I think, let's say Range was the name of the company. I've probably seen the name of the company before I see this. Maybe this is a social media post and it's posted by that company. So you see the name at the top, you see the name somewhere else. Like maybe that's not the most important thing. It's like, once you're here, we want to tell you what we offer and we want you to click on this. So it all depends on what the most important thing is.
Also, I like in that one, I like that Range is very large, so it does capture your eye, but because it's on the side, it's not taking up the very top of the text you would want to read, and because it's on its side, you don't really want to read it. It doesn't catch your eye as a thing I need to read. It's like I recognize that as a logo, and then the first thing you want to read is personal coaching and certified trainers immediately because it's the very top, horizontal text that you can see. Whereas when Range is on top, it's like, oh cool, I'm going to read Range first and then go down to the next thing. In this case, the very first thing you want to read is personal coaching from certified trainers, which is, if that's what you want, good stuff. And notice too that Range and the R and the E in Range are aligned to the elements that they're related to. So personal coaching, that top heading, is aligned to the E, and the learn more
ruler guide here.
Yeah.
To really align these things.
So it creates a relationship, even though that is a totally separate element, more or less. So
yeah. So what can we do here? I'm going to hide the rulers. Whoops. No, I'm going to hide the guide. Guides. I feel like I can't see sometimes.
I think if you click
clear. I'm going to clear those for now. And I have to show the rulers again because I might want to do it again. But I want to get out of this thing, just maybe change the font, do something a little bit different.
I like that.
I'm going to go to my Find More here. And this is taking me straight into the Adobe Fonts service through Illustrator, so I can find more fonts that I haven't already activated, and then I can filter them. I'm looking for a slab serif. I want something
chunky,
bold, chunky, strong. We're talking about workouts. The audience that we're going for is probably going to like a slab serif. How about Aglet Slab? Let's see, does it have bolder weights?
Yes, it does.
Black.
Ooh.
Or do I want an italic that's like running forward?
Ooh, I like that.
Talking about workout.
We have a question from YouTube. As designers, how did you guys learn where to place information on a page or structure the information that ultimately created well-balanced layout that felt right to you guys? So anyone in the audience who's been designing for a while, feel free to answer that question, and we will be happy to read it on air. But that is the whole purpose of this exercise in this course. So go to the link and try this exercise out. Basically, what this exercise is encouraging is to practice many different layouts and many different versions of this so that you start to get a sense of what sounds good to you. It's kind of working on your own taste a little bit and just getting a vibe for what feels right. So I think practice is actually the best way to do that. I know that's not a quick tip, but doing this exact thing a few times, and like I said, then going to lunch and then coming back and looking at what you did, will give you a pretty good gut feeling of what looks right to you and what doesn't. So I would try that out and do this exercise a couple times.
Okay. I was just trying to change the color to do something different. So we have our title in a different font. And then in one of the previous episodes, we talked about pairing different fonts together and what attributes you would look at in different fonts.
Mm-hmm.
I think that these look pretty good together, but we could spend more time looking at alternatives here that might work better. Maybe another slab serif that works better with the title. For now, I'm just going to play around with where it's placed. So in our examples, we saw something placed on the bottom, something placed on the side. In all these examples, the title is very large. So I think we might need to make better use of the space here because we're not using this whole thing. Let's say this is a post on Instagram and you have this square. You want to put use as much of the square as possible while still having it look harmonious and having it be readable. So I'm first of all just going to start with this being huge, and then we can always change it. Whoops, I need to lock this.
Oh, yeah.
Silly me. Lock this. Just lock it on the layer. Because I need to create another layer for it, which I didn't do, but that's okay. Okay, so then I'm going to move these ones down. And I think the learn more definitely should be bigger. This is so big. And let's see. So the learn more, this is in Myriad, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. I don't know why that is because this is Source Sans Pro. This is Freight Sans. I'm going to change this to Freight Sans so it can
Match the...
Yeah. No, I have to take off my filter. Okay. And then we have a lot of italics going on, but I think it works with the title being italic. Okay. Another thing we could do is make this all caps.
Umacorn said that Control-2 will lock a layer. I did not know that.
Oh, that's a great tip.
Good tip. Thank you.
Umacorn. I'm really bad at knowing these kinds of things.
Keyboard shortcuts.
Yeah. So this, maybe the learn more should have a different, this rectangle should have a fill so that it's more prominent. We can do that afterwards. Maybe these titles and this should be the same blue that the title range is in. But those are also ways of changing the hierarchy. So before we do that, we're just trying to see how big does everything need to be now that we established this.
My instinct, if this was going to be an Instagram post, would be to make this 2 separate posts and have the pair of this heading and body text. We would just have one of those on each. And so we'd have one and you could swipe right and see the next one. And then, learn more could be on both. But that would be my instinct because I think...
Well, actually, it can't
be
an
small.
Instagram post because learn more couldn't be a button.
Oh.
So maybe it has to be. Maybe we have to think of something else that this is. Just like a page on...
A website?
On a website. But it's square. I don't know. What else could it be? Can someone give us a suggestion?
Well, either way, if it's just an Instagram post, we can still have 2 versions, we can swipe right and have 2. And I think because
we
of the
can
square,
copy this artboard. Not letting me because... Okay, and then I'll move. Let me just make this tiny. Move this so we have it right below. And then we have 2. And then we can remove one of them. So you're saying just have the personal coaching one. I have to lock this again. Just have the personal coaching one on
the first page.
The first page.
That would be my instinct, at least in the square with the current kind of look.
And then this can
if this was in a carousel or something,
Yeah, and then maybe this is something that's huge and less less opaque. So it's
a little bit little bit more in the background, kind of.
Yeah. So it's another way of showing what the brand name is, but
It kind of goes into the background, so it's not so in your face.
yeah.
Yeah. That's another
And
thing
this,
to point out is that you can work with color, but also opacity here in this case. The color of range is closer to the background
boy.
now. The color of range is closer to the background, and so it kind of recedes, right? Even though it's the largest element on the page, because it's...
Yeah, what if it was like this?
Yeah.
No, it's terrible.
Don't be afraid to
Another
experiment.
thing you could do is if you're, you could create one of those seamless posts where this goes across both. You could do something like that.
Oh, yeah.
But
And the importance of experimentation is knowing what doesn't look good also. So,
yes, it's important to know what does not look good. Kind of like that. I think it needs to be, yeah, we can refine it more. Maybe a little bit smaller. I kind of like it not being straight. Then maybe this is that blue color, not the font. What do I do again? I think it's, I just want to pick up the color. There's a shortcut.
maybe you hold Option.
No,
No.
I did it the wrong way. You're right. Oh, Option reverses it and gives me, puts the color of the other thing on the other thing. That's good to know.
That is good
And
to
the
know.
little eyedropper went like that. Changed. But yeah, making this like the blue color that you had and just having it a little more cohesive that way. See, I can match it just with my eye because I'm really good. Making it darker. So yeah, and then having that be two different things. I think that could be cool. Maybe this needs to be, the text needs to be smaller. It's a little bit big.
Yeah, 25.6, not 25.61. You know?
What about 24.6666?
Okay. That's what I was going to say. I'm glad we're on the same page here.
I'm just gonna do like 22. Move this up. And then here you can see the top margin is smaller than the bottom by a lot. So I would just move this whole thing down. And that could help. What could help with that is having the rulers again, like we did before, and seeing like what's the distance between each of these points, moving this over and just like measuring it. Okay, it's, we need to move this up because it doesn't look very harmonious.
Did the guide get locked?
Oh, I had it on being, I think I already had it being locked. There you go. Thank you. But something like that, okay, that looks better. What about the sides?
Jeff
think,
said it's throwing me off that personal and the membership paragraph are not the same alignment. So I think the center align and the left align. But there might have been a reason for that.
Maybe in this size, it needs to be the same. And I think, again, this needs to be smaller now that I'm seeing it.
There we go.
This. I think since there's one of them, when there were two, it looked better to have them both like centered.
Yeah.
But I agree in this case.
Just the one.
Yeah. And then maybe this is like has a white fill. Whoops, not totally. Oh, I made the text white too. Whoops. I'm just not totally on top of my game today. Okay, so we have all these ways of arranging it. And it just shows you how much time you can spend on one little text block to make all this hierarchy work. It takes a lot of time, but it doesn't have to. Like, once you start doing this a lot more, you get into a habit, and you might have also certain formats that you continuously do, so you know how you're laying those out. And it doesn't have to be you start from scratch every time, but I think this is a good exercise to just get you into the habit of how you're thinking about things, so that you can also look at past things you did and say, like, oh, I wonder why I did that. Actually, this needs to be moved down by like 1 point, and then it's going to look better. It just gives you a different perspective on that.
I think too, another thing you could do is, do a couple of these and then leave them be for a couple hours or an hour. And then go look at examples of type that you like elsewhere. And, don't stare at them, but just kind of absorb a little bit of good looking type, whatever's good looking to you, and then come back and then see if that does anything. There's another thing you can do. A lot of people, when they're mixing records, when they're trying to get the balance of all the instruments right, they'll bring in a track that's a track that they really love, and they'll put it in the same timeline as their music, and they'll switch back and forth, and they'll listen to the track that they love, and they'll listen for certain sounds. Where are the vocals sitting? Where is this sitting? And they'll kind of try to match some of the characteristics of a track that they're kind of maybe emulating or whatever. So that's another good thing, is bring in a piece of type into Illustrator that you already like, and kind of use that as your guide. Like a little reference thing.
Variable font.
Ooh. Now we're talking.
If you missed our variable font episode, definitely check that out.
We've had 3 variable fonts episodes, so I would go to behance.net/Adobe fonts and check that out, because if you're excited about variable fonts, we have 3 episodes so far.
And variable fonts can help you a lot with this kind of thing, because I could have my one font. I use this setting for the heading, and then here I go in, I choose the same one, obviously variable. I then change the italic to upright. I change the weight a little bit. I change the width. And then I have my subheading. And I can just keep doing the same. And it just gives me so much range. And then I don't have to worry about using all kinds of different fonts. I just have one, and then I can change the size, move things around, and make sure it looks really cohesive.
Yeah, and I think it's worth too, like, I mean, you started changing colors and size and all of those things, which is great. But I think too, just thinking through as you're doing a layout and you're trying to make things look right, think through the different things you could change. Is it an alignment thing? Is it a font size thing? Is it a color thing? Do I need to make the font bolder? Do I need to make the font, do I need to change the font? All of those things could help you kind of create balance, or create an imbalance if that's what you want, or maybe you'll just, notice it's imbalanced and try to work towards something more harmonious. But all of these things are at your disposal. And I think the point of this exercise is really obviously to focus on proximity and alignment, so that you get really good at that. And then we've done previous episodes in this course that are about creating a display text that catches people's attention, and working on body text and kind of finessing body text. So that's something also worth checking out. And we are getting pretty close to the end here, Ari. I think I'm going to tell people to follow our links and say goodbye to everyone. So if you like,
Follow our links.
follow our links. If you liked this show, if you like the Adobe Fonts show, go to behance.net/Adobe Fonts. Wade just posted it in the chat, and follow us on Behance. All the old episodes are posted there as projects, and all the new episodes will be posted there before they come out. So it's a great way to kind of peruse a little library of stuff. A lot of that stuff is very evergreen and not really super topical, you know, of a particular time. So it's worth checking out and seeing if there's anything useful in there for you. And also follow Adobe Live on YouTube as well for all the Adobe Live good stuff. And if you have any feedback for Adobe Fonts, check out adobefonts.uservoice.com. Our product teams check this. Our managers check this. If there's something you want to see from Adobe Fonts, that would be the place to either vote something up or share a new idea of something that you want to see. Struggles you've had, features you want to see, problems you've run into, that's the place. So,
in general, bigger ideas.
Yes.
Doesn't have to be related to what you can do now. It's like, what if I could do this? Tell us on user voice.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining. Ari, good to see you. See you in a couple weeks.
Great to see you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.